Welcome to part 2 of the review of the high-grade Universal Sentry 1 to 144 scale EMS-10 Zudah. So in the first part of the review I went over the accessories and some of the detailing of the sculpt. So here in part 2 I'll be going over some articulation and some other thoughts, my final thoughts. So starting off with our articulation, it's pretty standard. The ankle joints, as mentioned in the first video, they're not their typical ankle joints. They can actually come out a little further than normal to allow a pretty extended sort of bend. Aside from that though, they're pretty normal. I mean, they've got side-to-side movement. They can rotate 360 degrees. And they do allow a fairly wide-legged stance while remaining flat on the soles of the feet on the surface. So that's great. The knees are sort of semi-double jointed. They do allow a wider range of motion than a 90-degree angle, but due to the design of the mobile suit itself and the model and some of the armor that gets in the way of it, it can only go just above 90 degrees for a bend. The front skirt armor is a single piece, so they both go up at the same time, unfortunately. This was not, as I recall, the design of the front skirt connector in the middle is just like pretty much a flat rod, or rather just a uniform bar pretty much. So it doesn't have the sort of option that you've seen in some of the newer high-grade models where it shows like sort of a semi-formed ball joint, double ball joint in the middle, where you can, if you separate it, you can put it as sort of two independent parts of the hip front skirt. So unfortunately it doesn't have it, but it's not a big loss. Now one sort of down point is the fact that the side skirts can't move that far, but that's more to the design of the mobile suit than the model. The mobile suit, the way it is just you can't really make a side skirt that moves that much while retaining the visuals here of the design. However, it's not too big of a loss. I mean, you don't really need to have the side skirts out that far anyways. One thing I will note though is that when you're assembling this model, the side skirts are specific to the side. If you put them in like sort of reverse from what the instructions state, they won't align correctly. All the lines will be off. You'll see like a gap in the front and on the sides. So be aware that if you assemble this model, pay close attention to the instructions. Follow them as they state for the hip armor. It's not like your typical mobile suit where usually the hip armor is interchangeable. You can go left or right, right or left. It doesn't matter, but for this design it does. And also the back skirt is immobile, so it doesn't move. So while if you move the front and side skirts a bit to allow front movement, the leg can go that far forward, but it's stopped just a little back like that. So that's too bad. But again, with the increased mobility of the ankle joints, that sort of balances out and makes up for the inability to bend the legs that far back. The waist joint, unfortunately, while it allows 360 degree movement and rotation, there's a part on the back skirt that hinders movement. So you can't go 360 unless you sort of pop off the torso a little bit, and it just won't look good. Similarly, actually, the head, while it has the ability to go 360 degrees, it's stopped by the chin armor colliding with the collar armor. Now for the arms, it's pretty standard. You can rotate it at the elbow where it's basically a peg joint. You can go 90 degrees in the bend. The wrists are on a sort of a polycap connection, so it has a lot of wiggle room, rotates. The shoulders do rotate 360 degrees. The upper arms unfortunately don't have rotational mobility, like you see in a lot of other high-grade model kits, but it's not a big loss. You don't really need to rotate it because you can get some sort of forward and back shoulder movement. Nothing up and down, but the shoulder joint has an extra hinge, I believe, an extra joint on the inside that allows you to sort of give you an extreme bend like that. And like in the first video, the shield does have articulation quite extensively. So you go back and forward, rotate it, and then tilt it like that. And finally, something to note here is that in the first video, you probably noticed that the arms were extended a bit. You see these black pegs here? If you actually press down on them, they pop down and extend the arms. And I believe that's to allow just better gripping of the 135mm rifle. To allow you to properly hold it in a sort of a double-handed grip. So that's pretty much it for articulation. I will touch upon the fact that it actually has a lot of little thrusters. There's like 4 for the legs, 2 on each calf. It's got 5 on the backpack here, the jetpack, where the 1 main thruster and like 4 directional, I guess, vernier or directional thrusters. So that's pretty neat details. This is a space combat mobile suit, so that's why it has all those different thrusters. So overall, I definitely think this is a pretty darn good model for sure. It doesn't have all the mobility of other model kits, but at the same time it has extra little design touches that give you extra mobility. The way I look at it is that it's like the Zaku's cooler cousin from out of town. It's basically everything I want in an enemy mobile suit, but the Zaku is what we got, or the Doms and the other sort of standard staples of the Gundam universes. The Zudah design is very much almost like a medieval armored knight or warrior. It has that kind of look, that vibe to it. So I really like that. It's pretty interesting. At the same time, it also, I guess, encapsulates a lot of the sort of signature design traits of enemy mobile suits in Gundam. It has a lot of curves, curved surfaces and forms to it, but unlike the Zaku, Zaku 2, the various DOMs and other enemy mobile suits from Zeon, it doesn't possess those overly large oafish proportions. It doesn't have like a huge chunky body or legs and limbs and anything like that. The Zudah is like a Zaku that went on a diet, I guess. I look at the Zudah as almost like in sort of action movies, especially from the 80s, you have like your sort of cannon fodder soldiers. They all sort of mill around and just get wasted. Whereas sometimes you have like sort of the elite troop of the bad guys or a mercenary group that are like extremely dangerous and only the heroes can take them on. That's kind of like what the Zudah is. It's like the mercenary mobile suit, whereas the Zakus are kind of like the oafish, run-of-the-mill cannon fodder soldiers. That's how I look at it. Overall, I really can't think of any bad points on the Zudah. It's a very neat model for sure. The complexity of the model kit isn't that high. I mean, there's quite a few parts, but it's nothing significantly different from your other standard kits. I think it has like maybe 4 or 5 runners and then 1 polycap runner. But it has, the way it's designed, it's just efficiently designed, I think. It has a lot of sort of gimmicks and details packed into a fairly standard design in terms of plastic kits. It's very well done, I think. So I definitely recommend the Zudah to anybody out there who has any interest in enemy mobile suits, or is just looking for something a little different than your standard Zakus or your Gundam, various Gundam hero mobile suits. The Zudah is definitely something very, very cool. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention is that right now I have it equipped with a clear plastic mono-eye that I painted. You can actually use the typical pink sticker on this foil sheet. I have 2 removed for the sights of the machine gun and the 135mm rifle, but I left the 3rd pink sticker off because I painted the plastic, clear plastic with the Tamiya clear acrylic red paint. I'll just show you right now the runner here. Where is it? There it is. I painted over it and then just let it dry for a day or so, and then removed it and put it in, and I think it looks very good. It adds extra depth and dimension, whereas a clear, or rather a plain sort of flat pink sticker kind of detracts from that. So I really like that. I don't know how well you can make out the mono eye, but I think it really looks stunning. It's kind of low key, and when light hits it, it really sort of comes to life. I really like that effect, and unfortunately not a lot of the mono-eye mobile suits that come with clear plastic lenses or colored lenses. Most of them come with just a flat surface or a little sort of opaque plastic piece that you put a sticker on. The only other mobile suit I have right now in the high grade line with a clear plastic mobile mono-eye rather is my Zaku 1 sniper type kit. I haven't assembled that yet, but I have painted over the clear plastic mono-eye with some orangey yellow paint, and so I can't wait to get that kit assembled. That's going to be very similar to the Zudah, I think. That's another kit where it's not something that you see often, but I think it's possibly one of the other underrated ones. So again, just to reiterate, I definitely recommend this model kit wholeheartedly. You can't go wrong. I can't think of any significant drawbacks. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.